Welcome to the Software Report, a leading information source on software companies and solutions. In this episode, we speak with Jon Belmonte, CEO of AutoVitals, a SaaS platform designed for independent auto repair shops. AutoVitals helps shops manage digital vehicle inspections, workflow, marketing, and customer communication, enabling teams to run more efficient operations while keeping customers informed throughout the repair process. Jon has led AutoVitals since 2019, building on a career of scaling technology companies across SaaS, e-commerce, and digital media. Earlier, he served as CEO of Active Network, guiding its $1 billion sale to Vista Equity Partners, and co-founded Spoutable, a publisher monetization platform later acquired by Proper Media. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked the episode, click to follow. Jon, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me, RJ.
So really interested to hear about how the relationship and opportunity started with AutoVitals, because it seems like you were partnered with a private equity firm. You're still partnered with a private equity firm, and that led to perhaps the investment and then your assumption of the leadership position. Maybe that's a good place to start.
Sure. Great. I had taken a role with Tritium Partners. They're a private equity firm based in Austin. They had built up the private equity practice over at Austin Ventures a number of years ago, and then they kind of went out on their own, have raised 3 funds. And I was a CEO partner with them, which meant I was essentially helping them evaluate markets and companies and opportunities. We had created a thesis. In my previous company, we had done a roll-up of a number of SaaS businesses. This was a while ago. And we were thinking about trying to recreate the same kind of magic, but in a different space, a different market. So we looked at tons and tons of different markets, and we landed on the automotive repair and automotive service market, for a couple of reasons. It had a lot of what a private equity group would be looking for and a technology executive would be looking for. It was a massive market. There's somewhere between 100 and 200,000 auto repair and auto maintenance shops out there, depending on how you count them. It's a highly fragmented market. And the market and those shops are really in an interesting point of the, I guess you'd call it, technology adoption curve, where they were showing real signs of leaning on and relying on technology to grow their shops and to perform better. But there were still tons of shops out there using paper and pencil or whiteboards or maybe Excel. And again, the technology market was very fragmented as well. There were no 800-pound gorillas. Maybe there was an 18-pound gorilla kind of lumbering around, but we thought, this is a pretty winnable market. And then, we really honed in on AutoVitals for the really 2 reasons. The primary reason that as we did market interviews, whether it was with shops, clients, potential clients, partners, maybe franchise organizations like Meineke or coaching organizations like ATI. And when we did our interviews, 2 things came back constantly. One was the player that makes the biggest impact on what we would call a shop's success. So driving up the revenue or customer retention or profitability, that really was AutoVitals, always came back to that. And then when we asked more questions about AutoVitals, they said, it's incredible product market fit. And maybe there's a little bit of opportunity to continue to build out some of the operations of the business. We had great customer success people who really cared about the customer, but maybe they needed a few more systems internally or some processes or, training or things like that to make them as effective as possible. Maybe same thing on some of the technology sides, like incredible technologists, but we needed some people who had scaled some businesses and done that. So it was a really good fit between the AutoVitals founder and the investors and board members on the AutoVitals side and the Tritium folks and myself. And, my coming in an operating role wasn't a requirement of the deal. I mean, I was happy to take a board seat. And the founder and their board, said, hey, this seems like a good fit. Would you be interested in, coming in an operating role and being the CEO? And I said, great. And one thing led to another, and here we are.
And going into a company like this that has great reviews from its customers, the product market fit is absolutely 100% there. Do you hit on go to market? Do you hit on acquisitions? It didn't seem like product improvement, was necessary at that time.
Right.
What are the kind of first few things you were looking to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the product market fit has been great. Again, the founder and the team that was here and is here, so innovative. So it wasn't really about that as much, particularly early on. It's maybe a bit more about that now, 5 years in, but it really was about ensuring that we had the right, I mean, again, I say processes, but processes and tools and systems and management layer and training for the team, because there really was a great team in place. We brought some additional people in, some people, as is often will happen, some people maybe weren't the perfect fit for the way we were going to be driving the business. So really kind of bringing a lot of that in. There was a bunch we needed to do in terms of, it might have been getting Salesforce in place or getting the right accounting platform or HR processes in place, those types of things, making sure that we had all the right benefits and the right comp structures. I mean, just making sure we had a great team because that was the foundation. And then making sure that this was going to not only be a great place for them to work right then, but to build a career, building out career pathing and tracks and those type of things. So that was really important. And then, just continuing to go out and build up the relationships that we had in the industry and the team and the organization prior to the investment. It was like innovative, we're going to move fast, and we're going to break some things. And that really served the company well in some ways. But I think there were also customers who said, well, maybe we can go a little slower and maybe not break things quite as much. And I think that's been great for customers too. But, honestly, the last couple of years, we've really spent a lot of time making sure we're striking the right balance of process and quality, but also continuing to innovate, because that's what this company in the position that it's in today and help customers be successful.
I'd imagine there's still a lot of runway, meaning like, I'm not sure what percentage of the market you have now, but given the size of this market, you could probably go for decades still
Yeah.
capturing more market share. So can you give us a sense of where you think you are? How much penetration do you think you're at?
Yeah. I think we're at less than, again, it kind of goes back to my comment before in terms of, I could say our market includes, all these different kind of sub-markets. I would say we're less than 10% market penetration.
Hmm.
But again, you're touching on an interesting topic, which is we constantly ask ourselves, would our tools be as valuable or interesting in markets like boating? Or I really like this market, commercial equipment.
Hmm.
So we have a client, they are a dealer and a service center for forklifts. And, their vehicles, it's very similar. They're ordering parts and inventorying and taking pictures of the vehicle and building digital vehicle inspections and streamlining workflows. And so, yeah, I mean, a company our size, it's as much about determining what you're not going to do as what you are actually going to do.
Yeah, I can imagine you're kind of like trying to figure out the marginal effort to get that extra 10, 20, 30 clients in the auto space versus going into another market where maybe it's because you're early on in that other market and you can more easily get the next marginal.
I think we've done a nice job of staying focused to date, but we'll see. It's something we're talking about for 2026. So it's kind of a fun conversation.
And so has it panned out to how you planned? Meaning you, I think, started in 2019 with this company. It's now 2025. Are you going to continue to own and grow the company? What's kind of the plan given this is PE owned?
Yeah, great question. Again, conversation that we have all the time. So the business has done very well. I mean, we're really happy with the way it's performed in the market, which is great. And, for us, like every company and every CEO in a technology business, I get 5 emails a week from folks. And, often they're just trying to fill out their little company card and build up their knowledge in the market and whatnot. But I don't know about timing. I will say, I think there's a handful of different paths here. We've done one acquisition. We're constantly looking at other acquisitions. We may continue to kind of expand inorganically. There are a number of other companies in our space that have come to us and said, hey, do you want to throw your lots in together and double or triple the size of our business and grow this to the size that, we think it can get to, or to just continue to plow forward organically? I mean, I mentioned the opportunity to move into other markets. We're doing a lot of work on new product. I mean, like anybody, we're really excited about the AI opportunity in this market.
Hmm.
We collect and kind of manage a lot of data. I mean, if you just think about every time a technician and a service advisor does an inspection on a vehicle, we're recording all of that information and then what the purchase rate is and all the pictures that are being taken. And that's data that, we're really starting to use and take advantage of. And, we want to make sure that our clients are using the tools as effectively as possible and implementing all of our best practices because they want to drive up their average repair order, the amount of work that they're selling through to their customers, which in addition to driving up their revenue, it makes their customers' vehicles that much more safe because they're pointing out any work that should be getting done or, hey, let's punt this for 6 months, but then we can use AI to remind customers to come back in and get that work done. So we'll see. The market is picking up, I think. We're seeing a lot more activity on conversations. I don't think we need to raise more money. We're profitable. We've got a good growth rate. It's really a matter of if it makes sense for us to include some other businesses in what we're doing or be part of what, somebody else is doing. How's that for a non-answer?
That's a very good non-answer.
Thank you.
You have a really interesting background. I mean, you've been in leadership positions throughout your career, and you're a very competitive collegiate athlete. We haven't talked to a lot of collegiate athletes that are now in leadership positions. And I always like to touch on this. Like, what did you learn about team dynamics and how to motivate or inspire a team? What did you learn from your days at Penn?
It's a good question. I don't get that one a lot. I appreciate that. So, I think things that folks learn and that I've learned are a couple of fold from sports. One is it's really important to know what role to play when, right? So I'll give you an example as a CEO. There are times in meetings when it's important that I step forward and help make a decision or course correct or whatever the case ends up being. But a lot of times it's really important for me to just step back and let others step forward and, drive discussions and make decisions because it's important that they are taking ownership of their roles or their position or their work or, whatever the case is. So that I think is really important. I think whether it's leadership or just as an entrepreneur or whatnot, it's really important to be able to kind of put setbacks in context.
Mm.
So whether that's if you're a defender and you give up a goal or a basket or whatever the case is, or you lose a game, or it's really important not to get hung up on that. And business is the exact same way. And to be honest, it's much tougher. The smaller the business and the earlier stage the business, the much harder it is. I mean, when you're an entrepreneur and you're pre-revenue and you raise some money and you've got 10 people on the team, there certainly isn't a week and almost a day that something doesn't come up and you're like, yeah, this could put us out of business. But you got to think about it and then set it aside because it's probably not going to, right? And that's the same thing. Like you make a bad play, you miss a shot, you blow it in a game, like you just got to set it aside and move forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess the last thing I would say is I find both in sports, but also in business that in order to really push yourself as hard as possible, and to suffer through the drudgery of like putting in the extra hours or working really hard or facing setbacks or whatnot, you got to make it fun.
Mm.
And, I've been on sports teams that we had a lot of setbacks, but it was really fun to be part of the team and it was totally worth it. Or I've been on teams that were really competitive and gosh, it was so hard and a lot of drudgery and hard work and extra hours, but it was worth it because the people I was, whether it was the coach or my teammates, like they just made it fun. And I think it's important to do the same thing at work. Like when we hire somebody new and I'm getting to know them and I spend on them, I'll say, look, you'll notice like I'll make a bunch of jokes or ask lighthearted questions or poke fun at folks or myself. And I was like, don't misinterpret that for the fact that we're kind of screwing around here. We want to make it fun because that allows us to really drive hard to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same for me. Like I want to be excited about showing up for work every day and I want to like the people I work with and enjoy my time with them. So
You mentioned that the founder maybe saw something in you and wanting you to take the lead in AutoVitals. Do you think this was part of it, kind of this philosophy of like wanting to have fun and create maybe a better work culture?
Candidly, he is phenomenal entrepreneur, incredibly innovative, passionate, really cares about the customer as much as anybody I've worked around. And he had a really great skill set and experience in building a company from the start to where we were when we got involved. And I think he saw that I had some experiences in scaling a company. And, not that he couldn't have done it or not that he couldn't have scaled it or not like I haven't grown a company from nothing, and one's not better than the other. But I think he just saw different experiences, different things that we were excited about at the time. And I think that was a lot of it. Not to say the founder wasn't fun, but I think that was a lot of it for him.
We're entering the tail end of the conversation, but before I ask the last two questions, one thing I'm curious about is what do you think, like up till today, you've had somewhat varied experiences scaling companies, dropping into other companies. What's been the most challenging situation you faced and one that you maybe look back on and you're like, wow, that was hard, but we got through it. And I'm kind of proud of, having figured it out.
I'll point to two examples. They're pretty different. So one was at a company called Spoutable, early stage. We started it from nothing. We were actually a lab. We had a bunch of ideas and some engineers, and we built a bunch of things. And then we really got behind one. And it was a machine learning driven advertising engine. And we kind of ended up on the wrong side of a direction that Google was going. And that was just really challenging because it just really became pushing a boulder up a hill. And all's well that ends well, but that was a good lesson. And we thought we were going to be able to work through that and work beyond that. I think the other was in a company called Active Network, active.com, that I built with a bunch of other folks. I was chief operating officer there for about a dozen years and then CEO kind of at the end for roughly a year. I think there were maybe times where our eyes were bigger than our stomachs, so to speak. We did probably 40 acquisitions. We grew the business to $400 and something million. We ended up taking the company public. And that might have been a business that maybe we should have done 25 or 30 acquisitions, probably stayed a private company. It was a little bit of a different time. It was, good 15, 20 years ago. It was maybe a little different time. Maybe the private financing routes weren't as available, but it probably ended up being much more brain damage than it was worth at the end. But it was a great outcome and it worked well for everybody. And again, kind of no harm, no foul. And it was a great learning experience on every level.
Last two questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who's had a profound influence on you?
Gosh, there's been a lot of them. I would say my mom. She raised me as a single mother, only child, hairdresser and waitress. And I really think I learned how to work hard, how to be resilient, how to will things to kind of happen. I think that's really important. And with her being in the industries that she was in and still is in, I just learned the importance of relationships and, developing rapport with folks and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's probably what person I point to.
Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Yeah, actually, I love this question. So my son, who is now 22, is a senior in college. When he was in middle school, he was kind of looking for a project and he started collecting used sporting goods for less fortunate children. And he kind of built it into a nonprofit and, I supported him through it. And it was a great experience. It's a nonprofit called Equip for Life. And then he started recruiting a whole bunch of kids at his school and other schools and doing all these drives and fundraisers. And then they would set it up with a Boys and Girls Club or other organization, YMCA. And then they would set up tables and they would hand out all the equipment to the kids. And it was a great experience. And then the other part that was awesome is he came to me during high school and he's like, I want to do something really big. And I said, okay, like what? And he's like, well, I want to try to build soccer fields in Haiti. I was like, okay, well, that's going to be tough. And he raised $50,000, $60,000 and is in the process of building the fields. Haiti obviously got pretty rough down there and then COVID hit and a bunch of things happened. But yeah, and it was great to see him sort of see what he could accomplish with just a little bit of parental help and really doing things on his own. So that was really fun.
Those are incredible ideas. I'm so impressed that he came up with amazing ways to help other kids.
Yeah, it's great. And it was really fun to see him recruit his peers and kind of lead them and manage them. It was a really good entrepreneurial experience, I think, for him. So it was fun to watch happen as a parent.
And is Equip for Life still around?
It is. It's still going. It's interesting because we're kind of in between generations. So he's not doing a huge amount with it today, but his younger sisters who are in 6th and 4th grade have done some things with it. We did a drive last year and took a bunch of equipment down to Father Joe's. And then I think we'll do more through middle school and high school. So it's a great experience for the kids. It's really fun.
That's awesome. Well, Jon, want to thank you again for taking the time. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks, RJ. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.